Good day and welcome to the Robust Ramblings podcast, where I, Gideon Maas, will be your host today, continuing our three-part series with episode 2 on marketing and content generation with Jenn. I hope you've been captivated by the first episode, and I'm excited for what you can learn in our session today. Just remember that the coupon code that I shared in the first episode is still valid, so if you go on to zoebusinesssolutions.com/resources, you can still find an opportunity for you to do your 2024 marketing plan for free using the coupon code Let's Get It. I hope you enjoy this. Okay, so we've touched on everything except place, which I think is an interesting one, because from 1994 when you started working and the place was the place where you sell your services. Now, place is universal to, I can sell anything to anyone all over the world. And depending on how quick Elon Musk gets to Mars, that's probably also going to be possible in the next 20 years. How do you think about the place of selling a product given the digital age?
So I see it very differently. When I studied place, it was more about the distribution. So how are you going to distribute your product? Is it going to be through a warehouse? Is it retailing? That was very much what it was about. Now, when I consult with clients, I talk about your place as being, is it going to be online? Are you going to have a course platform? Or are you going to have a CRM? Or is it a digital product? That all relates to how you deliver it. Are you going to deliver it via email? Do people download it? Or does it come through social media, direct messaging? It can be any of those things. Or is it a Zoom call? Is it a webinar? It can be anything. So that has really broadened, and I think it's also given us the opportunity to reach a bigger and broader market, and to scale a lot easier. And it's just technology has made things so much easier. I was talking to a client yesterday who is looking at doing workshops in her local area. And I said to her, that's great, but you're trading time for money, and your capacity is limited if you're just offering that. The geographical area is limited. So what about looking at doing a mini course or webinar, or even producing an ebook that all of a sudden you can expand your market?
Yeah, that's very good. And that's what I saw a lot of people in COVID times move towards. Everyone wanted to start a side hustle, and everything that I found worth thinking of was selling subscription-based items or something that's not time-bound. So I've got a lot of friends in the graphic design industry, and every single one of them start out with their own company, start designing things for companies, and then they hit a ceiling of which they can't grow out of unless they employ more people. And it's exactly this thing. You can't sell hours and expect to scale, right? You have to have a sellable product that you can sell without your time needing to be involved in that process. So I love your example of a course, like an online course that you can take videos of it, high quality videos, make that available for sale, and you can sell it to the entire world, and you only have to do it once. It's going to cost you a bit of money to do it once, but the time you're going to save in the future, and the fact that we're going to get into this later, have an online actual asset that you've built that can outlive you is something brilliant.
Exactly. And there's such a massive opportunity right now for that. And you can do it at home. You don't need a lot of infrastructure, you don't have to spend a lot of money on producing these things. It's very easy to do it yourself, as long as you've got a cell phone or a laptop, and you can produce amazing things.
Oh, that's wonderful, Jenn. That's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So that's the 4 Ps, right? So something I've been wondering about, and I would like to go into in a bit more detail, is the concept of a brand. So, studying, I remember one of my lecturers had this thing about you as an individual that need to have a brand to be able to sell yourself to whatever companies you want to apply to. We see companies having brands nowadays. And a good example would be something like Red Bull. Red Bull is actually an energy drink manufacturer. but in essence, they've built a brand, and from that brand, they're upselling a lot of things. Another example can be something like locally, We Buy Cars. They've built a brilliant brand around how they do their marketing, the type of communication they use. Like brand, if you had to define it, what would you say, what would your definition be, and what would you include from your company's after your company's brand? Because I think a lot of people stop at the concept of marketing as getting the information out there, but your brand is going to speak to how you sell it, to whom you sell it, how are you perceived, that kind of thing.
So I think the simplest way to answer that is your brand is really the personality of your business. It's the wrapping around your business. So your business is, and the marketing is kind of the business systems, the internal systems, but the branding is what people see and perceive your business at. And the way to even look at it is like a personality. So what is the personality of your brand? What's coming through? How are your core values of your business aligned to what you're producing out there? And there's so many amazing stories of different brands that have done this so well. And I think that it makes it a lot easier. If you think of brands that stand out, they're ones that have got personality, that are doing different things. Whereas there are thousands and thousands of businesses that will never make an impact on you. It's just a name, because they haven't really thought about what is the branding and how can I connect to people. Because at the end of the day, people are human beings and they want to connect to something or someone rather than just an entity. So it's so important to create a brand identity, a brand statement, and a personality that infiltrates everything you do. So I'm trying to think, like GoPro, for example. They did a number of campaigns. One was called Be a Hero campaign. And they had people on their GoPros doing various things, and then they generated a tremendous amount of content from that. But they suddenly made just a camera to have some kind of a personality or association that people could associate with, and it invokes feelings and emotions. And that draws people to your business or to your brand. It can't just be a transaction. I'm creating this and I'm giving you this, I want your money, and it's just an exchange. I think we've evolved so much past that, where people want to know what is behind the brand, who is behind the brand. So it's also so important to show your personality and for people in the business or in the brand to actually speak on camera or to show themselves, so that people can resonate, because your business is going to attract the right people to you and the people that resonate with you. So it's important not to hide that, and it's almost about bringing a humanness to the business, I would say, is what branding really does.
That's brilliant. So I know what my generation, and I don't always understand everything the younger generation says with all the new words that they're inventing, but something I do know is we appreciate authenticity, and that comes across during this type of communication. So I love how you associated the feeling something gives to you, because like if I think of GoPro and I think of something like Red Bull, both of them, I get this feeling of excitement because there's going to be something extreme happening. Someone's going to do something crazy. It's going to look pretty cool. There's effort that went into this one stunt that someone has been training for years to do, type of thing. Right? It's going to be motorbikes or massive waves being surfed, or some crazy race car or whatever, right? So I love that. That's beautiful. So if I had to define the elements required in building a strong brand, because you were speaking about brand identity. Me as a person, I've got an identity, what I believe, what I stand for. Now, how do you bring those things across into a company's brand identity?
I think the foundational thing is authenticity. So it needs to be authentic, and It needs to carry through from how you're treating your cleaners in the office, or any associates, right through to how you treat your customers. So there must be an authenticity and as well as a consistency. So that consistent message or brand message must appear in every single thing. If there's inconsistency and there's not authenticity, you will never reach what you want to or achieve what you want to with that brand, because people will see through it.
So I mean, if I can just interject here, so authenticity here, I've seen this on multiple places, in multiple places where I try and be who I want my customers to think I am. I can live that out and have that consistently throughout my business. But what you're saying is different. You're saying be who you are and sell that to your customers. Am I understanding you correctly? So what's your current ethos that you live by? Because if you're going to treat your cleaners, your staff, your customers in one particular way, you have to be that. You can't like pretend to be that. Otherwise, people pick it up.
Yes, exactly. So you can't be someone who pays very poorly, pays your staff very poorly, treats them badly, works them to the bone, but then you project your product is amazing. Maybe it's spa services and you're rejuvenating people. There's a disconnect.
Wow, that's very, very cool. I mean, that's why negative publicity can really hurt the company if it's anti what they stand for, because people lose trust.
And it will slow you down actually, because you will know that you're not authentic. And it almost feels like there's weights on you if there's not this free flowing authenticity through everything that you do from start to finish. And that's even in the core values of your business. So are your core values, are you living them out within the business as well as externally? So those two things need to be authentic. What you're saying and doing, where people can't see, needs to be the same as what you're saying or doing externally, where people can see. And then the experience is very important for a brand. How do I experience you? So again, I'm seeing these incredible adverts or messages about your brand, but when I phone your company, I feel like I'm invading, or I'm taking up your time, or I'm a nuisance.
Yeah,
So how am I made to feel when maybe things
sure.
go wrong with my
Yeah,
product or service?
that's so true. I mean, like, who's a good example of this? I'm gonna let's take Telkom, right? So it's Telkom markets their products really well, and it's very easy to sign up with them. But the moment that you wanna stop using their services, you realize that you've been bound to them for life. And so I remember in lockdown, we visited my parents, and obviously we were working from home then, just because of the lockdown realities. And we were in Mossel Bay, and my parents always had a capped internet package with Telkom. But I mean, we were never there to use all of it. So now all of a sudden we're there. All of us are just in the house. So you're spending a lot more time online, video calls, taking a lot of data, and then we end up using the cap product. And they wanted to change to an uncapped product, but they eventually, like, they had us so frustrated because you have to stay on the line for hours and hours and hours, and it drops you off back on. So my experience with Telkom is just negative, right? So I mean, obviously, if whoever listening works for them and you want to change that, that's great. But that was our experience, and that's the experience that we tend to then share with more people. So it has a negative brand impact, is because they didn't follow through on the promises they made. Similar thing that I've seen is car companies selling their vehicles, and they've got this thing that sounds amazing, which they call a balloon payment. And you get to the end of your term, and then balloon sounds like party, but it's only a party for the guy selling you the vehicle, because now you have to cough up a very large amount of capital at the end of the day, which you didn't plan for. So it's not necessarily their fault that you didn't plan for it, but the fact that they've been selling it as something nice. That's what I think you were referring to earlier as a black hat
Mm.
tactic.
Yes. And I think it goes back to how does that make you feel as
Mm,
a consumer? Um, does it make you feel good, or does it make you feel, I feel like I've been somehow dwindled here, or I'm feeling negative about this experience? Um, Something similar happened with me where I didn't realize that a 1 year subscription went off my account that I hadn't actually authorized for it to happen. And I had to fight to get it back. Even though there was no communication to me that it was going to renew, I did not renew it. They just took it upon themselves to renew it. Whereas with another company where I had to query something where they took off money, and also the same thing, I hadn't authorized a renewal. Within a day, the money was returned. They didn't argue with me, and I just felt so good about it. So I think it really comes back to how are people feeling when they're interacting with you? Are they feeling like this person really cares about me? Um, and it's not just about money, or they just want my money, and they don't really care about me as a person.
mm. That's very true. So I mean, So my original thinking about branding and marketing, firstly on the branding side, was what's my logo and what font will I use to put whatever message out there. So how much does that actually play a role in your brand? Color schemes, type of letter usage. I know graphic designers speak about the certain emotions people feel with or associate with some of these things, but I'm not an expert in this field, so I would love to hear your opinion.
Well, it really again depends on the stage of business that you're in. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're just starting out, you actually don't need an incredibly designed high level logo and brand colors. You need to have a basic idea, but you shouldn't be spending your time on that, where you should be spending your time really on understanding your market and developing a product that you can bring to market that will generate income. And then you can start looking at that down the line. That being said, it's important to have at least basic brand colors, and and like a color palette that you can use. But too many entrepreneurs get stuck on that, and then they're spending so much time on that, whereas a competitor might be not so worried about that. They just want to get something to market, sell it, start generating income, and then that becomes secondary. Obviously, if you're more mature in business, then that is very, very important. And it's very important to have consistency, to choose your colors correctly, to have a logo that's easy to position, um, and if people can read it and see it, and it's not just, it actually says something, you've got a tagline, that's important. So it's a little bit difficult to give a blanket answer because it really depends what stage of business you're in, what type of business you are in. But if we are talking a lot to startups or entrepreneurs, then it's not as important as what you would think. What's most important is what you are selling and the solution that you bring into markets.
That's good. So what you're saying is focus on the things that will bring value to your customer, and how your logo looks won't bring value to them. It will create maybe an association with the product or service that they have already experienced, or on a larger customer base might be inviting them into your brand or your ecosystem. But the value of what you've produced or the service you're delivering is actually the thing that you need to get going. It's not about how you look at the beginning. I love what you're saying there, because the first thing you do is, oh, what are we going to call the company and what's the logo going to be? Spend 2-3 days on that, rather than what are we actually going to sell and how can we make this a product that can be, sold easily, increase the willingness to pay, all of the things we've already touched on.
And if you take that even a step further, if you think about the consumer, are they looking at your logo and saying, wow, that's amazing? Or are they looking at your solution and saying, I've got this problem, that's what I need? So, I mean, I've been very much for to always have a logo. And nowadays with Canva, if you are a startup, you can easily create a logo that looks very nice. And down the line, you can get a professional graphic designer to design it for you later. You can have something. But I think the principle behind it is don't get caught spending all your time and attention on superfluous things that aren't really going to generate your income. Because at the end of the day, you're a business and you need to be generating income.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I even played around for mockups on a software solution for a potential client, and I just wanted to have a logo on the mockup without having to go and design something. I just went online to like AI logo creation software. You put in the name, the industry, it drops out multiple different logos, as well as color font schemes, colors and font schemes, and it gives that to you in a brand pack or already PDF'd with the logo size, letters, everything that you'll typically get already. So I mean, yeah, save time on the things that you can focus on the things that are actually value adding. So I mean, if that's the case, then, and I'm focusing on building my product as a entrepreneur new in the industry, do I then have to focus on branding immediately? Or must I first focus on the services, and as it sells, I build a brand around that?
I think you can't really get away from branding, but it's important to understand what is your why. So what's the why behind what you're doing? Because that's going to influence both your branding and your product or your service. Where do you want to position yourself in the market? Because that's also going to influence how your brand comes across, where your brand personality is. What are your core values? And then understanding who are you actually trying to reach or serve, and what would make sense for them. How can they perceive me and receive me in a way, or my business in a way that they resonate with? So you can't really disconnect the two. And I think that they will grow organically, but it's important. Again, this is what I want to stress. Don't waste time on things that are superfluous. Spend the majority of your time thinking about how can I've got a solution in my hand that many people need. How can I get it to them? And how that looks or how it's packaged might be a little messy in the beginning, but it will evolve and get better over time. But I might be spending, and I also did this in the early stages of my business, a lot of time trying to figure out what does the brand look like, instead of actually going out there and selling something and learning from that experience and bringing that experience back in, getting customer feedback. I know that I know a multi-seven-figure entrepreneur who his funnels look terrible. I used to cringe. But so I compared myself. There I was trying to make my funnels look absolutely beautiful and brilliant, but I wasn't selling anything. His looked a little bit messy, but he was selling and he was making a lot of money. And now he can employ people to make them look really, really good. But he's made a lot of money in order to grow his business. So he did it a little bit messy, but he was able to give the solution that people needed and wanted.
Sure. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love stories like that. I've worked for a company as well, a large multinational, and they kind of started at this startup phase where the systems weren't in place to scale, and when the business hit scaling size, then only they had to start worrying about the systems, because then only would it add value to them. So what I love what you're saying about branding, and it's actually shifting my perspective on it quite a lot, is not necessarily how my clients perceive me, but it's more focused on who I am. Like the word brand typically throws me off, right? So if I think of branded clothes, it's a label or a color or a logo or whatever, but actually more focused on identity than the brand side. It's who are you in your ethos as individuals in the business, and then who are you going to be, and that you should be that same person to your clients and live out one unified vision, and you communicate that through visual elements, which includes logos, color schemes, fonts, types of messaging, or types of images, videos, and that messaging, that communication is what gives people a certain feeling, but that's also directly going to be linked to the service or product that you've delivered. Because if they see a discrepancy between the two, it hurts your brand.
Absolutely. And you hit on a very key word there, which is identity. So your brand identity is huge. And it's oftentimes, if you are a business owner, it's linked, your own identity is linked to your brand identity, but it should be differentiated. So you should be able to understand, what is my brand's identity apart from me? My identity will influence, but I am not my brand, and my brand is not me. You need to be able to separate that, I think, to be healthy as a business owner. But we actually do brand identity sessions. So we help business owners craft a brand statement for their business. And once you know what your identity is, you can move into the purpose. So even as an individual, if you don't know your identity, you cannot walk in your purpose, which ultimately leads to your destiny. Same as with a business. If you don't understand what is the brand identity, you can't fully show up and produce the purpose of this business, because the business, I believe, is an entity that is something that is for other people. It's not just for you. It's there to be a blessing. It's there to employ people. It's there to help change even regions and cities by producing wealth and creating opportunities for people. So I think that those foundations of brand identity are actually a foundation for the growth of your business going forward.
And it
And
actually helps. Sorry, would you just repeat that?
and the impact that you are going to make as a business.
Very good. And I think it helps keep you as a company on track as well. So I mean, in business, you get different seasons, and your purpose and your brand, that identity of who you as a company are, is going to determine what type of work, whether it be products or services, or even ways of working, you say yes and no to. Like in your personal capacity, there's certain things that you will just not do because, and I mean, I would use these words, that's not who I am. I would not steal because that's not who I am. And certain industries I won't support because that's not who I am. And in our business, even, we've decided that in certain industries, even though the technology we build is 100% like tailored for that, it can be. We just decided we will not function in that industry because that's not who we are. So your brand also helps keep you on track. So Jenn, I've been thinking now, right? So we've been touching on brand quite a lot. Can we maybe move over to marketing for the last bit of time that we have? Well, that's actually where you are a specialist in, right? So marketing in today's context, the only thing I think of when I think marketing is no longer flyers and TV ads, because people don't watch that anymore. It's all social media related in my mind, at least. I know it looks different for small companies in small cities, etc. How should a business owner think of these things? Now, the reason why I'm saying this, right? So I mentioned the example earlier of our first startup where we built this online store and we sold like healthy goods to our friends. And our only form of marketing, and this was our limited understanding and experience of it, was creating an Instagram account where we put photos up that we weren't really good at taking. And it was sending the link out to our friends and family and putting it on WhatsApp. We tried doing like direct like Google ads stuff, but that didn't really make a big difference in our context. That's the only context that I do have. And if I'm a new business owner, how should I approach marketing my product if the brand thing is already in place and I've thought that through?
So I think that it's important to understand marketing in a holistic manner. And so I look at it in four S's. Firstly, having a strategy in place, then having a system that can run that strategy and actually guides you. So it almost is managing the people. You don't have to micromanage, the system manages the team. So the strategy gives direction. Once you know your vision, once you've got your brand, you have the strategy, you then have the system in place, you have software that can run it, and then you optimize for sales. Because also very often I find business owners will put something on Instagram, like you say, or send it on a WhatsApp, but it's not linked to, well, how do I actually get this product or service? So those are the four S's. And then how I look at marketing that business owners can think of is the SPECS framework, which I created. So looking at marketing with different or new lenses. And SPECS stands for looking at your SEO, your search engine optimization. So do you have visibility online? Can people find you? Then paid advertising. Are you going to use paid advertising? Like you were saying, you tried Google, but it didn't work. You need to have the foundations in place, and you need to have everything connected. I was explaining this to a client yesterday who said, well, we've got this website and it's not working. And I said to her, it's like having, if this is your website, it looks great, but what's behind it? Because that's actually where the marketing happens. You've got to connect all the pieces behind it. If you just have a website, it's not going to serve any purpose. You need to connect everything. And you do that through content marketing, which is resources or creating value for people using your website. I explained this to Gideon when we last spoke. Your website is an asset in your business. It's like a piece of real estate. So you want to keep growing that real estate because it's your real estate and it's a valuable asset to your business. If you're only focusing on social media, you're growing Mark Zuckerberg's real estate. You want to leverage his real estate, but you want to get it to yours. So you do that with your own content marketing, which is written, audio and video, and then you use social media to get traffic. So that's where people are hanging out to understand where your audience is. What are they looking at? Are they more Facebook orientated, or are you B2B where you are more LinkedIn? Where are they likely to see your posts? But link the post back to your website. So you need to have a content marketing strategy in place. And then I left out email marketing, also very important. That is a huge asset that you need in your business. So that's the E in SPECS. Be sure that you've got a website that's collecting leads, you're growing an email list, and you're building relationship with people via email. And if you've got those 5 areas in play, and even from the get-go, I wouldn't even recommend doing paid advertising until you're certain all those other things are working and your offer is converting. Then only go to paid advertising, because paid advertising is going to bring a lot of traffic. But if your sales mechanism is not converting, you're wasting money on that. So it's important to dial that in. So those are the 5 areas that I would say are very important to look at when you are marketing, and they should all be holistic and connected in their approach. Don't just decide, okay, I'm just going to try email marketing, but it's not connected, because in your emails, you want to send people back to your website. On your website, you want to make it easy for them to be able to click the button and buy. So that's why it's so important to understand the strategy behind your marketing and not just look at other people, because if you're looking at the bigger brands, they're following a strategy that you can't see. So I always talk about the IM in marketing, being visible. So be offering so much value that people don't even realize that you're marketing to them. You're answering all the questions that they have, and you can do research on this. Answer the Public is a great website. Find out what are the questions people are asking around the solution that you bring, and then answer those questions. Make sure those questions are answered on your website. Be the resource, be the go-to, be the voice that people turn to when they think of, this is the problem I've got. If I Google it, you're going to pop up in various places answering my questions. And because it's all connected, it's like omni-channel marketing. They're going to think, wow, these people are all over the place. Every time I'm looking for this solution, I'm finding them here. I'm finding them on Instagram. I'm finding them on Google. I'm finding them on YouTube. And you can build that over time. But it's so important to have a strategy where you're building consistently so that if you want to sell your business down the line, if an investor is looking at it, they can go into the analytics of your website and look at the tremendous amount of traffic that is coming in and see the value of your business. Whereas if you have not paid any attention to your website, they can look at what we call vanity metrics, which is how many people follow you or how many likes you get. But do those actually translate into sales and into revenue and into profit for the business? And that's where the differentiator is.
There's been like 20 very, very powerful things, at least there, that you said. I would actually love to go into all of them. I know we're going to run into a time limit. So thinking of the measurements, right? So you just spoke about vanity metrics. I've read about that in a book. I've got it here on the Lean Startup. It's here on the shelf next to me. And beautiful idea on what not to measure or what to measure. So for example, the number of traffic on your website, in my opinion, might be a vanity metric. You should rather look at the number of converted sales, because that's or the percentage ratio between the two. That would be a actual metric to see. Another example that I've heard of was if you have new software solution, don't just look at the number of new signups. Look at the percentage difference between the signups and those who are not using it anymore as well, because your front door into your system might be large and wide open, but your back door might be bigger. Now, so what type of things should people look for to measure in the I'll call it software, the services space, right? So any new product that you want to market online, what should you measure?
That is a whole podcast on its own, because it's huge if you really want to look at it. But it is so important, first of all, to actually have measurement strategy in place, because so many business owners you can't manage what you don't measure. So they're not looking at the right things if they're even looking at metrics. So I agree with you. Yes, getting traffic to your website, great, it's there. But you need to measure what are they doing. So even from the get-go, is your website connected to Google Analytics 4? If it is, you can connect it, but have you set up what you want measured? Do you know what you want measured? Do you know the customer journey that people must take? Where do you want them? How are you channeling them to get there? Have you connected it to Google Tag Manager and Google Search Console? And then if you have, are people dropping off? Where are they getting? Are they getting lost? Are they coming to my cart, but then abandoning it? So conversions are very important to look at. And conversions are what you should be looking at. Firstly, you need to have a goal. Well, what is my goal? Because then I can understand what I need to measure and if I got it or not. So if you don't understand what are the goals for a particular campaign that you're doing, so say, for example, you're running a week-long special, what action do you want those people to take? Because then you can measure it. So be very clear on the call to action that they need to take, and then what mechanism have you put in place to measure that? So where are you sending them? Are you sending them to your website? Are you sending them to a funnel? Are you asking them to DM you? What are you doing? So your measurement is going to differ compared to what action you actually want people to take. And measurement is a huge thing as well. And it's so vitally important. You should be measuring all sorts of systems in your business on a weekly basis and constantly looking at how you can improve them. A very basic rule of thumb is looking at 100. So you've got 100 people coming to your website. How many converted? If none of them converted, then maybe you need to look at changing the headline or the color even on your website. Something as simple as that, or the font. If you get into 500 and you're still not getting conversions, then you need to look at what your offer. Maybe you need to change that. Maybe you need to change the wording around it, or even what it is that you offer. So there are so many different metrics to look at and to measure. It's very difficult to say one or another. But the point being is you need to be looking at your metrics, and it's really about conversions, not an engagement. Because engagement is huge, both on Google and in social media. Are people interacting? Are even in your email? So in your email, you want to measure clicks. Have something in your email that people click on, because that will indicate to Gmail or whoever it is that this is valuable content, people want it, they're engaging with it. Rather than looking at likes, looking at follows, don't look at that, because it can give you a false sense of security. Oh, I have all these likes and follows, but it's not translating to revenue. And it's not building your business assets either.
Wow. Sure. Jenn, we're going to have to land it here now, but my brain is being challenged. So my nuts and bolts the gears are running, just because I've really learned so much just in an hour and a half. I would actually love to take a lot of these conversations further in the future if you'd be willing to, but this was very, very, very insightful. Probably one of the most insightful discussions I have had on the podcast. So thank you, firstly, so much for opening up and speaking about this. I can see you're passionate about it. People are listening won't necessarily see you smiling while you're speaking the entire time, but I can really see you've got a passion for this, and the value and the heart behind why you're doing this, obviously, is to see people transformed. It comes back to the non-profit side or industry that you wanted to work towards. Is you wanted to make a tangible difference and see people's lives transformed, communities transformed. You mentioned this just now, cities and nations even transformed through this, and this is such a fundamental part of business that I think very, very, very few people actually get right. And this is going to be the differentiator between long-term success, amongst other things, but a very important differentiator for long-term success versus only short-term gains in many industries and many companies. So Jenn, thank you firstly so much for your time, but also for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have shared over the last hour and a half.
Gideon, thank you for the opportunity and for just inviting me to be in this space. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Friends, this marks the end of our second episode. Just remember, there's going to be a third and final episode within this marketing series with Jenn next week. So please tune in for that. Then we've got an exciting announcement. We've just released our website. So please go to robustpodcast.co.za and check that out. And please subscribe to our newsletter, as everyone who is subscribed to this newsletter is going to get special content that's going to be value adding to your business. And it's going to be content generated by us as the founders of this podcast, as well as the experts that we have coming onto the podcast regularly. Friends, I also want to invite you to please go and give us a review on the podcast and tell us what you think of it. It really does a lot for us. It helps us grow the podcast. It'll be great to know what type of content you would like to see in the future.
I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening. And I just want to encourage everyone just to subscribe, go to our social media pages, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you guys are keen on booking a call with us, to do a session with us and just have good chats, book a call on our Linktree link, and see you guys in the next one. Thanks.